Dip dye, tie-and-dye and batik prints give you an opportunity to easily brighten up all kinds of garments. Before you can start with any of these printing techniques, the garments have to be soaked in water. This process is necessary to remove stains, natural oils and waxes from the fiber, which could disturb the dyeing process and might lead to streaky effects later on. The internal drum of the hydro extractor rotates at high speed, letting out the excess water through its perforated metal wall. The less water the fiber contains, the more dye will be able to get into the fiber. The spiral is the most basic of the tie-and-dye techniques, and also one of the most popular. The garment needs to be laid flat on the ground. Thumb and index finger are twisting in circular motion, gathering the shirt around the center point. When the entire shirt is spiraled, it should have the form of a flat and round bundle, almost like a cake. To keep it in this state, several strings are being tightened around the cake. The more strings are being used, the more intricate the pattern will look in the end. Now the coloring with reactive dyes can begin. Using a squeeze bottle will lead to a more accurate result, especially around the center. To achieve a horizontal pattern, the shirt needs to be gathered and folded from the left to the right side, so it will look like a tube. The loops will separate the tube into different sections. Those parts of the shirt which should stay white in the end are covered in plastic foil. The uncovered sections will be dyed in one or more colors, according to the desired effect and outcome. To get a very random and cloudy pattern, the fabric needs to be crumpled up into a round and flat bundle again. The same way as before, strings are randomly tied around to hold it together. Dip dye. In order to achieve a dip dye look on a garment, dye stuff needs to be poured into a flat tray, so the bottom is covered only a few centimeters. As the name of the technique suggests, the garment then gets dipped into the tray. It's advisable to do this with a partner. One should hold the garment and the other one needs to thoroughly work the dye into the fiber. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to get a straight and neat line separating the dyed and the undyed section. Working the garment up and down into the pane will give a smooth, color gradient ombre design. Batik or resist printing is a technique with an origin in India that can be traced as far back as 2000 years. It is a process of decorating cloth by covering a part of it with a coat of wax and then dyeing the cloth. The wax being used is a mixture of beeswax and paraffin. It gets heated up so it will melt. The cloth, usually it is cotton or silk, will be spread over a bed of damp sand to ensure that the wax stays in the cloth and also to cool it down a little. The printing block will be dipped into hot wax and then pressed hard onto the fabric. The printing blocks are made out of a series of nails, banged into a block of solid wood to create a flat, dot pattern surface. Once the wax is dry, the fabric is soaked in water before being submerged in the dyeing bath. The waxed areas keep the original color, and when the wax is removed, the contrast between the dyed and the undyed areas give the pattern. Not all pigment dyeing processes have to have heat involved. Since pigments adhere to the fabric with the help of a binder, they can also be applied cold. Eye-catching effects can be obtained by spraying the pigments onto a garment. For this purpose, the garment is mounted on a rubber dummy and air is filled, so the garment is fully fit exposed. Then the paint will be sprayed on with the help of a normal spray gun. The outcome will appear speckled and stained, and depending on the distance of the spray gun, it will have a more or less uneven look. The garment can also be hung and stretched onto a stack. This way the paint can be sprayed on without having to rotate it, and the outcome will look more steady. More fashionable effects can be generated by the process of cold pigment dyeing. The stitched garment will be dipped into the dye bath, slowly be patted by hand and left for soaking for about 2 minutes. The time varies depending on how broad the effect shall look like in the end. The garment has to be carefully squeezed. Twisting would lead to unwanted streaks and stains. For another 10 minutes the garment should lay flat, so the paint can fully absorb. After drying in the tumble dryer, it will go through another washing process. The bath contains acetic acid to form a permanent bond to the fiber and softener for a smooth hand feel. The result will be a vintage look with faded and washed out effects, especially around tricky seam areas. Due to the short dyeing period, the paint will not reach there completely. Pigment dyeing is actually not dyeing in the real sense. It is the immersion painting of a garment with a very thin, soft fabric paint, so-called pigments. Pigments are insoluble to water, which means they need a binder in order to be able to stick to the fabric. Pigments are more likely to wear off, and after several times of washing, the color of the garment will fade. To still achieve a strong color fastness, after all, a combination of pigments and reactive dyes will be used for the dyeing process. The process of pigment dyeing is applicable to nearly any kind of textiles, even synthetics or blends. It is cheaper and requires lesser toxic chemicals, some of the many reasons why it is one of the most popular dyeing techniques nowadays. Pigment-dyed garments appear much more worn and used than their actual age and degree of wear would suggest. The effect comes even more clear on a mix and match design of different fabrics. Lava dyes are dischargeable dye stuff. When it's used for garment dyeing, in combination with acid wash, it will give a whitish and vintage-looking outcome. Lava wash is just the right process to choose in order to achieve bright shades and dark colors in garments. It also offers great possibilities in creating wash effects, due to its excellent decolorization with permanganate and accelerator. Coloration can be done at a low temperature, and great light and wash fastness can be achieved without pre-cut ionization or binders. Lava wash is a very sustainable dyeing process.